Now, obviously, if men are going to live in a society, there is no way in which you can have absolute freedom. There is a famous dictum of a Supreme Court justice that my freedom to move my fist is limited by the proximity of your chin. In a society in which there are many people, freedoms are bound to interfere one with the other. We are bound to have limits. And the question that we need to ask, and the question that I want to talk about tonight, is what arrangements in a society will minimize coercion while preserving the maximum opportunity for members of a society to cooperate with one another to achieve their separate objectives. The fundamental principle that I am going to try to uphold was stated by John Stuart Mill in On Liberty over 100 years ago. The only purpose for which power can be rightfully exercised over any member of a civilized community against his will is to prevent harm to others. His own
Hey, how's it, everybody? Welcome back to Freedom FANatics. I'm your host, Alex. Today, joined by my esteemed colleagues, Thulas Nxesi. Guys, today we are going to be tackling a little news story, which I found a little bit discomforting, as well as a nice feel-good story coming out of Shoshanguve. Guys, remember to follow us at Badge of Liberty on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, as well as TikTok, where your freedom is worth fighting for. Okay, so gents, today let's kick off with our first news story, and that comes this week from the Daily Friend, highlighting from the Business Times or Business Live, I can't recall, that Thulas Nxesi vows to penalize employers for hiring foreigners. Now, we've had an article on freedomadvocacy.net by Vincent Savory Jackson discussing xenophobia of late, so kind of on theme here, I think. But essentially what Thulas Nxesi is proposing is that there should be stiff penalties for employers who persist in hiring foreigners to perform low-skilled work when South Africans are available to do so. So I'm going to leave it there for now, and I want to come to you, Seymour. What are your thoughts about this proposal from our dear minister?
I don't really have any, apart from the fact that I just only have questions. I want to know what is the aim of this amendment? What are we trying to achieve? Are we trying to send the foreigners away, or are we trying to get our people employed? And if the latter is the case, why aren't we looking at why our people aren't employed and why it's the foreigners who maybe are getting these low-skilled jobs? I'm just a bit confused about what exactly are we trying to do as a nation about this? So yeah, I actually only have questions for Mr. Nxesi, and I hope the amendment bill will clarify it further.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, in the article, it mentions that there are 6,000 comments on this piece of legislation. So I'm sure questions like that are being posed. Sholin, would you be able to answer some of Seymour's questions? What are we trying to achieve by doing this? Does it ultimately help South Africa move forward as a democracy, as a sort of a struggling economy to grow? Can we grow this economy with legislation like this?
Yeah, one of my problems for sure, Alex, is that as Seymour asked that question, I don't even think Thulas Nxesi understands what he's trying to do himself. None of his colleagues either, in my opinion. But I will say that my question simply would be, when it comes to like a policy or a proposal such as this, it would be like, does it either hinder or does it restrict the operations of business? Does it make it easier to do business or does it make it harder? And the simple answer I would say is that it most likely does make it harder, because what we have in South Africa is that all foreigners are not necessarily illegal in the country. Some people come here with proper documentation. well, a lot actually coming with a proper documentation, with working permits, who are actually contributing to our economy. That's something we need to always remember as well. Especially because many times the news are highlighting issues of, these Nigerians came here with drugs, or there's some type of criminal activity, but many times they forget that they are actually foreigners from a lot of countries, different countries, bringing productive investment, resources into the country. Not only financial, but also the intellectual capacity they bring into the country, and also the labor as well. And that's something we need to keep the engine of our economy running. And something actually, Alex, which is so weird to think about now, is that he's trying to prioritize South Africans working in the country. And at the same time, we have a situation where a lot of the skilled workers in our country are actually leaving. So not even South Africans want to work in South Africa because of the difficulty of doing business. So Thulas Nxesi is really not thinking properly with regards to this. He should be thinking about, how do I attract and make it possible for more South Africans and others to actually come into the country to do the operations. And for government, it's beneficial, because the more operations, the more taxes are paid, which means the more money the government themselves get for their own operations, where he can chill like this and think about the most terrible ideas ever, Alex. Yes.
I just want to add. I just want to add to what Sholan said there. What he said.
New code card. FANatics code card. No, but absolutely. I mean, but Simo, one of the things that Thulas Nxesi proposes to enforce is penalties for businesses that don't that hire foreigners. Now, we saw last year, not earlier in the year, sorry, Julius Malema went to restaurants and said, like, you hiring foreigners, you bad. But now Thulas Nxesi kind of highlights that this is low-skilled, low-paying jobs. People are paying low wages to these people, entry-skill positions. And I know you've written on something on the effects that similar legislation, like the minimum wage legislation, has on businesses. Now, if we're going to penalize businesses for hiring foreigners, which is deplorable, but also, businesses think on their feet, right? They want to hire people to do a job at the lowest cost to them. And now the government's going to penalize them, in theory, for hiring people that aren't natively South African but are legally here. I mean, if you were a businessman, what would you do with your business in this situation?
Wow. Find a new country to operate in. I mean, there's just more and more impediments in the way of doing business. It's going to get more and more expensive in South Africa to be a contributor to the economy, which shouldn't be the case. We have many problems of unemployment. We have many problems of abject poverty. Yet the people who best put us in a place to combat this are the people who are being challenged in the most. So as a businessman, what would I do? For real, though, I mean, finding a different place to operate in is a legit good idea right now, because there's not much to look forward to as a businessman in South Africa. There's too much law, there's too much government intervention, and it's probably only going to go downhill from here as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Sholan, I think just a last little comment on this before we move on to our next story. It really doesn't bode well for it's a very nationalistic thing to do, very race nationalistic move here. Does this advance non-racialism, unity in South Africa?
No, absolutely not, Alex. I think it's actually more regressive than progressive. I think that there's actually no difference. My question would be, what's the difference between saying that you can not hire somebody from this nationality than what the apartheid government did, when specific people were only supposed to be hired for specific jobs. Their skin color had to be a certain way. We see that's just the same thing with BEE, where it's basically people are hired based on their race to fill some sort of quota or some type of makeup. That actually only harms the country, because people have grievances eventually. And that's why I really don't think how this is supposed to take us forward as a country, when people should be hired based on the merit and not because of the skin of the color.
No, absolutely. But I think the one thing here is that when opportunities are limited, people people get the government starts to create these outrageous kind of policies and ideas. But guys, let's move along to our feel-good story for today, and this appropriately comes from Good Things Guide today. We focused a lot recently on the township economy, the informal sector, the informal business sector. But today we're discussing a story coming out of Shoshanguve, where a guy by the name of Tebogo Maredi essentially created a program to look after, to encourage and educate people around looking after the welfare of pets and their animals in his community in Shoshanguve. Now, essentially what he did is he started a walking club, which brings together children on Friday afternoons to walk their dogs, and they all go together, they walk their dogs, they socialize, kids get together, they clean the dogs, they bathe the dogs, and then at the end of the day, they provide the owners with dog food to be able to look after their pets appropriately. Now, Sholin, you are an avid dog owner. A dog is a man's best friend, as they say. What are your thoughts on Tebogo's program?
Yeah, no, I absolutely love his initiative, man. I mean, animals are the best, pets are the best. Especially like I have a few dogs, and yeah, my favorite part about them is that they don't speak back. So my ideas tend to be confirmed whenever I speak to them about it. But no, absolutely, I think that his initiative is absolutely brilliant. It's original, I think, and that's something that's quite unique. And that type of thing should be incentivized more in our townships, because I think he's identified a problem that, especially even in my township, that we experience is the neglect of dogs as well, of animals, of pets. That people have, and he's really brilliantly married the two of not only providing for the owners, like a meal when they engage in this activity, but also actually taking care of the pitch as well, and it creates a brilliant incentive. And I mean, that's absolutely brilliant, Alex.
No, absolutely. I mean, Simo, is this we've spoken a lot, and you've written about the township economy and business and the kind of things that could happen to scale these kind of initiatives up to provide more support for small business owners. I guess here, this is probably the kind of thing that could be scalable across other townships across South Africa. What are your thoughts? I mean, somewhere like, do you think in KZN, where you're from, this is the kind of thing could work as well?
Yeah, of course it would work anyway. I mean, it's adding nothing but goodness. We're teaching people how to take care of animals. What I can't think of a better way to help change people's attitudes towards the treatment of animals, because especially, I mean, amongst the communities and the townships I've been around, we've treated animals like dirt. So this is one really good way to best combat that. And yeah, only big ups to him, big ups to Tebogo. He actually should get Mr. Nxesi's job. he seems to be quite innovative with these ideas.
No,
yeah,
exactly.
I was just about to say, yeah, Tishimo, you're absolutely right. I don't even think Thulas Nxesi would be able to even run an initiative like this. They would really make a success of it. So you're absolutely hear stories like this, Alex, because I think it reminds us that South Africans actually have humanity at the end of the day, that our government doesn't always represent, with the crazy ideas, they don't actually represent what's happening on the ground every day. And these are really good stories that I think should invite a sense of pride in us, actually, as a country.
Yeah. And it will only serve to inspire the youth of that community, exactly. For sure. If at least one, I know it's going to be more, but I can guarantee on my own part that at least one child would be inspired by this, and they'll do something in the future in the same ilk. And big ups to that, man. Big up.
No, absolutely. I mean, we've got to look at ways of restoring dignity, right, and pride in one's own community, and obviously that can be a great launch pad for setting the tone across the country. They always say, start by making your bed, and I think what's really cool about Tebogo's initiative here is that there's not a profit incentive here. I mean, I wouldn't be surprised. SPCA came on board, but that's what they do. They deal with rescued animals and the like. So you know what I mean. I think it just shows, where there's an opportunity, where there's a need, people step up. And I wouldn't be surprised if some other organizations come on board to help him out and maybe facilitate his program and maybe expand it. There's so many aspects that could be expanded: the child care aspect, the animal welfare aspect, and it's always like, so it's not necessarily that pets only belong in the leafy suburbs. It's not that's not how these things work. But John, before we cross over to Mbali, any final comments?
Yeah, no, I was just about to add, Alex, that I think that it creates a sense of responsibility as well. That tends to be lacking sometimes, is that we need to take ownership of the areas we operate in first, like whether it's in our household or whether it's in our community. Like that's where it starts. You won't start with some major legislation that's just passed and everything is suddenly rosy and we live in paradise the next day. But no, it starts in the communities that we take responsibility for, and that should be our point of departure, I think. And that's why I'm like, yeah, this is absolutely brilliant.
No, absolutely, and I think our next segment with Mbali will cover this, tie in nicely to this. But guys, remember to follow us at Badge of Liberty on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, as well as TikTok, where Sholan very often shares some very feisty little news bites called Fan News. So make sure you take a look out for that. And also just a shout out to Mbali sells fan merchandise. So be sure to get your favorite hoodie. I think she's waiting in the wings, ready to showcase one of her favorite hoodies. So let's keep an eye out for that. But in the meantime, guys, let's jump into burning questions with Mbali.
Hey yo, hi guys, welcome to your reactions, Alex. But yes, I am. I am wearing my favorite hoodie by Gary Kasparov. You can get one of these. There's a link in the description box to our fan shop. There's really cool hoodies, cool t-shirts, and you know what? Yeah, we have cool stuff. We are cool people. Guys, welcome to your reactions, and yeah, let's get right into it. And today we're looking at a quote that I think Alex was right. It does tie in very well to what they were speaking about on Freedom FANatics. And it's from Imtiaz, and he says, "This country doesn't belong to the government. It belongs to you and me. Sholan, it belongs to me and you, but what about the government? The government is important, I think."
Yeah, it's really weird. Like, for a country, as we were saying, that needs more responsibility and so forth, the government that is actually meant to, the current government at least, that's meant to represent us, doesn't necessarily do very much with, especially with all of the operations and so forth. And I think since they do not necessarily represent the majority of South Africans, well, at least this is the case, because more people tend to not vote and tend to actually step back and like not necessarily engage with our elections, then actually vote for our current national government. That's actually an interesting fact, and that's why I do not think that they necessarily represent us or the wants and the things we want to see this country transform into. But nonetheless, I think we still need to take responsibility and represent those values we would like to see in this country. Yeah,
definitely. Thank you for that, Sholan. Okay, let's go to the first comment. And it's a bit long, but yeah, let's get into it. And it reads, "Most definitely. Unfortunately, most of our countrymen are easily blinded by the ANC's misleading rhetoric of other people. Is there a possibility that the people will see and acknowledge that those who promised a better life for all didn't really mean it?" Alex?
Look, it's a very good point. I think what my first reaction to that is there's a lot of furniture that goes around during election time. I'm not saying votes are bought off and like that's the sum of our democracy, but I think there's a lot of just blatant sort of ingenuine kind of being paid off to vote. But that aside, there's also I think there's an element of the social grants come from the ANC, perhaps, or from the government, which they, I think, the kind of the mixing of the ANC and the government. So maybe as an electioneering tool, creating the ANC might stoke fear by saying that, you'll lose your grant if you don't vote for us. I'm sure that kind of thing happens. But yeah, I mean, I think more importantly, it's kind of about, like we discussed on Freedom Fanatics, when the government starts making very questionable legislation, you've got to think is in whose interest are they doing it? Does it advance your life? Does it improve your family safety and security? Does it give your community more opportunities?
Definitely. And the next comment is from Liz, and they say the ANC will never agree. They have this misconception how they fought for South Africa. The youth are blinded by all the rhetoric spouted out by old men and women who should have retired. We need new blood and vote ANC out. Simo, do we need new blood to take South Africa further or to make South Africa better?
In short, yes. But longer, I've actually been reading the comment because, rather easily I could deduce that I'm next. I've been reading the comment and I still... in short, yes, we do need new blood. Of course we do. We have 25 years now of failure to suggest that we are in desperate need of new blood, and hopefully we get it. Hopefully South Africans form the type of personal relationship I've always advocated for in their votes. I've always, like, if anyone's going to ask me for advice on anything, I usually just say form a personal relationship with that decision, because you become invested in the results thereof. You become invested in the process. So hopefully South Africans, like, as the quote says, the country does not belong to the government, it belongs to you and me. An extension of that is to say the government is you and me. They should be representative of our interests. So new blood.
Exactly. But I just wanted to add on to Simo's comment there and say that, we definitely need new blood, because I mean, like, if you watch Parliament, I mean, these old folks are busy falling asleep in Parliament. I mean, that's supposed to be the house of the people. That's exactly what they're supposed to be representing us. And they are falling literally asleep at the wheel. And even more than that, I think that it's not only needed that we need, fresh youth or young people, but the ideas that they come with is equally crucial. Yeah.
But Molly, could I just share a quick clip with the crew, just to sum up some of our prime ministerial
yes, please, and I know exactly which one.
I don't know. How can you not know, Minister? You know what? I don't know. But that would be astounding, Minister.
Man.
That
would be astounding.
Oh my gosh. They make us laugh. At least they're hilarious.
Exactly.
Let's give that to them.
Yeah, no, but it's that sad laughter, it's that laughter of depression. It's not the good one, we're not laughing because it's great.
You're gonna end up crying. That's what's gonna happen. So it's best to laugh, guys.
Yeah. But let's laugh at positive things moving forward. Let's not laugh at our failures. That's what I'm trying to say. It's like, we need better things to be laughing at. Yeah, it's very sad that we have to laugh at our minister like that. It's quite unfortunate, actually.
Yeah.
Oh well, tough times. The next comment comes from Patricia, and she says, "The government has stolen the country from you and me. Time to take it back." Mr. Alex, how do we take the country back from the government?
I think there's various ways. I think standing up to things that you disagree with, like we've spoken about some dodgy legislation currently going through. Or, there's comment periods. Find organizations that make submissions, support civil society organizations that defend democracy, that make the case for your individual liberty. And secondly, register to vote. As Simo said, take ownership of your decisions, but register to vote, speak via the ballot box. Really, I can't think of a better way. That's, every 4 or 5 years, go and do that. The rest of the time, just be engaged, make your voice heard, support people who, go through I don't want to say real channels, but official channels, but that's one way of doing it. By doing that, you bring more attention to the issues and you get more support from people who probably agree with your point of view. Use that kind of freedom of speech that a democracy allows, that our democracy allows us to, and speak up when there's things that you don't agree with.
Yeah, definitely. And I think a lot of people do agree with this code card. So one person says, please run for president, sir. Shame.
I want Tebogo. I want Tebogo. The dog walker. Please.
Yes, he must run for president. You see?
Yes.
Small wins. And I think the last comment that we'll look at, it comes from Nisha, and she says, yes, it belongs to you and me, but I think the psychopaths that are running this country just lining their pockets. When will it end? I think that's the biggest question. When will it end?
I'm sorry. She wrote psychopath.
She really did. And I think she's accurate. She's not wrong at all, because at some point you really think, how can you run a country like this? You definitely there has to be something wrong with you to be able to think that a country will function like this. And I think the question that she then asked at the end is, when will it end? When will it end? Sholan, do you think it'll end anytime soon?
Sure. My hope is that come 2024, that it will come to an end. I mean, it will take a process, because 25 years, more than 25 years of democracy being corrupted from the inside out by our current ANC government. I really hope that we will see transformation. Like renewal is exactly the word that comes to mind, what we need as a country, for people to actually have faith in our government again. As Simo just mentioned about like laughing at Becky Chela, I also think that's accurate. I'm like, we're supposed to have such of utmost respect for a minister, somebody in high authority like this, and yet we cannot, because of the foolishness of the governance. They made fools of themselves without even trying on a national TV platform like that. I mean, I'm starting to actually see where Nisha's coming from when she uses the word psychopath. Because it's a very schizophrenic situation locally, where the leaders of the country are looking one way, and then you see ordinary South Africans like Imtiaz Sooliman, and the story we just did about Tebogo, where you see South Africans actually doing the grind, actually trying to change the country with what they have. And that's why I'm like, these are the kind of South Africans that we need in leadership positions, just because we've seen the initiative that they take for improving our country.
Yeah, definitely. And I think you are right, Sholan. It'll end when individuals decide to vote. And come 2024, let's do the right things, guys. Otherwise,
put Mr. Tebogo
vote
in
for
office.
Tebogo.
It ends there. Trust.
That's where it is. Guys, thank you so much for joining us on this episode. Do remember to check out our content on Twitter, Facebook, TikTok, and Instagram. And do buy this cool hoodie. And your freedom is definitely worth fighting for.